Okay, now we're recording. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. So if we remember in the we did chapter 30 last week with the PL strong verb. The primary diagnostics is, of course, the for the perfect form, 3MS, we would see the heric in the root one position, and then the dogged forte in the root two position. And that would be the general for the perfect, but then in the other conjugations, the imperfect, the imperative, infinite, absolute, infinite construct, and the participle, we would see the podic in the first root position and remain the dogged forte in the second root position. Now, in the imperfect, we'd have the vocal shava with the performative, the yod or the here or the tav or the olive, and then in the participle with the mem, we'd have the vocal shava as well. So those would be strong diagnostics features, right? So normally our strong diagnostic feature would be this podic with the dogged forte here. And if we had the performative, let's just do a performative here. We'd say performative. We'll say prefix, Prefix. Okay. For if it was the yod for the imperfect, we would have the vocal shava. If it was the mem, we'd have the vocal shava as well. And the great thing about this chapter in chapter 31 is it remains very constant. Throughout all the weak forms, remember a weak is dealing with the gutturals, right? Guttural, Gutturals. Is that right? Gutturals? Can't spell. Um, and so the only place it will affect is in the when we have a guttural in in the root two position, the stem vowel position, right? Why would it affect it here? Why would it we see change here in the second root position when there's a guttural? Say an in or an aleph or any of the other gutturals.
Because the same vowel always goes in the second root.
Well, the stem vowel is the second root. That's correct, but that has nothing to do with the guttural or the fact that there's a change here. We're going to see the only change that we're going to see is going to be here because of the gutturals. Why? It's right in front of you. What do you see in that position? What do you
Gutturals
see?
cannot take dagish.
There you go. They cannot take the doggish forte, right?
Dagish.
And so, if you remember back in the nouns, there's really two things that can occur when that doggish falls away. Is you can have what's called virtual doubling, or you can have compensatory lengthening, and that's all we're going to see. In the entire chapter, everything's the same as we did in the strong verb, except for the second position gutturals. And then we'll see what we've already seen. We'll see either because it won't take the guttural, we'll see what's called virtual doubling, or we'll see compensatory lengthening. That's it. That's the entire chapter. So this is I think one of the easiest chapters in the book because nothing. If you understand chapter 30 with the PL strong verb, where the in the perfect form we'll have the heric in the first root position, we'll have the guttural as the other diagnostic feature in the root two position. In the other conjugations, we'll have the podic in the first root position instead of the heric. And then, of course, for the imperfect and the uh, participle, we'll have the vocal shava there. So, and that's really all there is to that. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to look at the weak verbs, right? That's with the gutturals, and then we're also going to look at something called the polel. So if you remember when we started verbs, we said there are seven major verbal stems, right? The cow stem, the nipple stem, the PL, the pual, the hipfil, hopefal, and the hipfile. Well, those are the seven major, right? I think I did it right. Um, but they're minor. There's some minor stems that we're really not going to get much into. I don't remember how many there are. We are going to get into just an introduction to three of them. One is called the polel, and basically it's just an extension of the PL. And I'll show you. It's so unbelievably simple. It's ridiculous. And basically it deals with biconsonantal. Again, we're talking weak verbs, right? So associated with weak verbs, we'll have all the gutturals. We'll have the third het, third ion. We'll have the third olive. We'll have the biconsonantals, well, the geminant, and then the biconsonantals really don't show up in the PL, but they show up in the POL. And that's really what happens is the biconsonantals basically for PL for by shows up here in the POL. And that's all that is. So anyway, we'll look at it. Okay. Third het and third ion, right? One, two, three. Third het and third ion. Everything that we already saw is exactly the same. Nothing changed. So here's our perfect, that heroic with the doggish forte. Here's that podic with the doggish forte. And then, of course, we have the vocal schwa for the imperfect performative, the podic, and the heroic, podic, heroic, podic, heroic. These are all the same. Remember how to tell the difference between the imperative, infinite construct, infinite absolute? Do you remember how do you context, of course, will have to tell you the difference. What is the for the imperative? How do you know if it's an imperative versus an infinite construct or an infinite absolute in the context? Generally, do you remember?
Appears at the beginning of the sentence,
Yeah, it's going to
normally.
appear at the beginning of normally the whatever the command is. It may be at the beginning of the sentence or the clause, but yeah, it's going to appear at the beginning, right? All right. But what about the infinite construct and the infinite absolute? They all look the same. How do I differentiate between those? There's one other clue, and it deals with the
Inseparable preposition.
inseparable prepositions, right? Which one?
Construct.
Yeah, the infinite construct is going to have 90% of the time, not 100%, is going to have the inseparable preposition associated with it. So you'll see that, or, that, or that with it, kind of thing. So then the least amount of time will be the infinite absolute. So that's just your sort of your uh, prioritization. You would sort of assume that one, if it has the inseparable preposition, it's going to be infinite construct. If it does not, it could still be infinite construct or infinite absolute. Obviously, if it's the imperative, it's going to be the beginning of a statement of sort. Go do this, stop that. Then your sort of last resort is infinite absolute. Okay. I can't remember if I clean this up. How do I clean this up? Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so same diagnostic features as a strong, same as a strong, same as a strong. There is nothing, absolutely nothing new for third het and third ion from the PO strong. They're the same. And the reason is because this third position doesn't affect the doggish forte, or doesn't affect the first root position, or doesn't affect the performative thing. So it doesn't affect anything. Okay? It makes it pretty simple to identify. We good? All right. The third olive, the exact same thing. Nothing's changed. The perfect is still going to have the generally the here prefix or vowel on the first root position, second, third, and then we'll have the doggish forte there. We'll have the podic in every other place, and then of course we have our vocal schwa on the performatives right there. Nothing's changed. Okay, we're almost done. I mean, so if you got a problem question, please speak up. I don't want to rush it, but I'm not sure what else to do with this. Um, third het, there's third hay. Typically, that's where we find a lot of our problems is the third hay. But not here. Everything is the same. The uh, Herrick for the perfect, the Paddock with the vocal Shiva, the Paddock, Dogger's Forte, Paddock, everything's the same. Nothing changed. It all remained the same. Now you still have, let's not forget, third hey, that's a consonant, right? That's a consonant. That is a vowel, right? That is a comments hey, that's a hey. That's a comments, Segol comments, comments, Segol hey,
People,
that's a sere hey, that's a whole vav sere hey, and a Segol hey. Those are vowels. So what happens? That hey drops off. And so oftentimes when you are looking at root position one, root position two, and you want to go three, but if it's a vowel, it can't be a root position, can it? It cannot. It's just a vowel. And so ultimately, that's a good clue that that's a third hey. Now, that doesn't change the diagnostic features at all for uh, for the third hay or for third hay PO weeks verbs. They're still the same. Nothing changed. But I just want to highlight, don't forget, those are vowels, vowel letters, right? It's a vowel letter. Uh, Remember, vowel letters are typically called unchangeable vowels. We'll see the segol with the imperfect and with the participle. We'll see the sere with the imperative and in the infinite absolute. And here's our unique one with the whole vav tav on the infinite construct. Okay? If you remember, there's our third hay endings for the perfect 3ms, comates hay, imperfect, segol hay, participles also segol hay. Imperative is going to be the sere hay. Infinite construct is our unique one with the whole vav. We've been seeing this chart over and over again. So hopefully it becomes more and more familiar. And so when you start seeing that root one position, root two position, root three position, and it's a hey, but there's a vowel, that is not a consonant. Um, that is a vowel letter. And so you can probably guess the hey is dropped off. So there's a hey there as the consonant. So basically it's hey, hey. So anyway, that's kind of ugly. Pretty ugly, but oh well. Everybody comfortable with this? I mean, nothing new, right? Do you remember it? So, like, yeah, I got it. Let's move on. Quit wasting my time. Is that where we're at?
yeah.
Okay, good. All right. And then the geminate. Again, nothing has changed here. All the PO weak form diagnostics, the here going to the perfect root one position, the podic everywhere else did not change. The dogged forte in the second root position, the stem vowel position, did not change. And remember, our stem vowel typically, our stem vowel is going to oftentimes be variable between the podic, the segol, and the that's not right. The Sere. So here we see the Sere more all the time, but that's not really a diagnostic feature because it is a variable. Um, but in the geminate, nothing changed. Now here's where we get the change. So thought I erased that. I don't know. I guess I didn't erase it. Oh well. So second gutturals. There's two ways to see a second guttural. Remember, we can have virtual doubling. Let me talk about virtual doubling because it's always confused me. I'm like, what doubled? I don't get it. Dubling. Virtual doubling. Well, virtual means it's virtually done. It's not literal, right? And so what happens when you, let's see, root one position, root two position, root three position. What happens when you put a guttural in a consonant? Whether it doesn't matter what position. What happens when you put a not a guttural? What happens when you put a doggish forte? What's the end result of putting a doggish forte? Let's say a bait. What's the end result of putting the doggish forte there?
You double the sound. I mean,
That's
not the
it. You
sound, but
double it. That's right. You double that sound, right? Well, so what happens is that they're virtually doubling it. In other words, basically, it's virtual, it's not real. So what happens is that doggish forte can't go here, so it goes away. It's called virtual doubling. It's really not doubling at all. That's why it's virtual. Virtual doesn't mean literal, non-literal. Anyway, that bothered me for a long time. I finally kind of figured it out. I don't know if I got it exactly right, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So it's called virtual doubling. And all that happens though, here's the problem. Only thing that remains is basically either 50% or 66% of your diagnostics. If you had 100% of diagnostics, you'd have one, two, three. You'd have that, and you'd have either that or that there, right? One of the two. And if you had a third position here, then you'd have, let's say, there. So if this was your word, then that's 100% of your diagnostics would have a doggish forte and a heroic for perfect or apodic for the others, right? That's 100%. But if you lose that, you've lost 50%. So now you only got half of your diagnostic feature. You only got half of it right there, there, and there. 50% is gone, 50% remains. With when you have the imperfect or the participle with the prefix, now the 100% would include the Shiva. But now when you lose that doggish forte, now you only got 66%. You lose 33%. 30% lost, 33. So they keep 66%. A little bit easier, maybe, to recognize that, maybe as a PL, but you've lost a key factor in this. And that makes it really, could be really difficult to recognize. Um, I don't have any tricks. I don't know how to do it other than, you know, kind of just know that the doggish forte will drop out because of this het, third guttural position, second guttural position, right? That's a guttural. So if you recognize that's a guttural, that might be a key. Oh, that's a guttural there. I wonder if that might have had a doggish forte there. And so it could have virtual doubling. Does that make sense? Did everybody understand? Did I explain it wrong or I need to have
yeah.
head nods? Yeah, I got it. Okay, good, good. We're okay. All right. All right. So virtual doubling is one way that they compensate for a second guttural doggish forte loss, losing the doggish forte. The other way is compensatory lengthening. We've done that before. And again, we lose the guttural, that's gone, but we lengthen the uh, the preceding vowel. Normally, this is a Herrick, and it lengthens to a serre. So Herrick lengthens to a serre, and then normally this is a podic, so the podic lengthens to a comates, and that's all that happens. So again, we've lost 50%. Let me redo this. In one sense, we still have 100% of our diagnostic features because that lengthening there, it remember race couldn't be part of the gutturals. So uh, with that gone, you get that lengthening there, and that should be your clue. That could be your clue, but it's probably hard to recognize. So in one sense, you still have the doggish forte is still there. It's just in the lengthening. And so in one sense, you still have 100%, but it doesn't really look like 100%. So it's basically like the same thing. It's like 50% lost, but it's not really because that lengthened. And that is all the changes that occur. So when we put it all together, our strong diagnostic form for the PL. There's our Herrick. There's our Doggish Forte, right? Everywhere else we'll see the Podic with the Doggish Forte, right? And then in the with the prefix for the imperfect and the participle, we'll have the vocal schwa. And you see how consistent that remains in the third het and third ion. That didn't change. That didn't change. None of that changed. In third olive, same thing. None of that changed. Third hay, same thing. None of that changed. But that is a vowel, not a consonant, a vowel letter. The geminate, same thing. That didn't change. That didn't change. So it's very consistent. The only place we have a problem, potential problem, is going to be second guttural because they can't take a doggish forte. And one or two things happens, and you already know both of them. So you've learned absolutely nothing new today. Nothing. We'll get virtual doubling or we'll get the compensatory lengthening. And so that uh, here it becomes a serre, and that podic becomes a comates because of the loss of the doggish forte. Everything else is the same. Makes sense? We good? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, now there is this polel with biconsonantals. You notice when we did the week, we had the third het ion, the third olive, the third hay, the geminate, and second guttural positions, right? We didn't do any biconsonantals, none, because biconsonantals don't show up in the PL. They instead show up in the polel, and that's really all it is. So it's called a minor conjugation because they have a different stem, a polel stem, but it's used only with biconsonantal, and they're actually used, the polel is the equivalent to the PL in terms of its translation, its usage, okay? Um, I don't know how else I'll describe that. And so what you'll find is, in our book covers it under the additional information on page, oh, I'm looking at the right chapter, wrong chapter. Page 345, 31.13. And you'll see basically we have, hold on a minute, I can't see. I got to look at the book because I don't really remember Poel. There's actually two more. One will be associated with the Pual, another one with the Hippoel. So the Polel is associated with the PL. We got PL and Polel. I don't know how to make a joke out of that. I want you to notice on page 345, number 31.13. And talking about in chapter 12, we had the seven major stems, right? We talked about that. The cow and the six derivatives from the cow, the nifal, the PL, the puel, the hifel, Hophal, and hiphil. Um, but there are a number of additional stems that are called minor because they're relatively infrequent. Um, so there's going to be four of them that we're going to cover in this book. I'm just going to introduce, really. And you can find out more if you want to reach. But the four we're going to look at is Polel, the Polal, the Hishmael, and the Hippoel. And we'll get into those when the appropriate chapter comes in. But here we're talking about the biconsonant verbs do not occur in the PL, the PUL, or the HIPFIL stems. They don't occur. Instead, they occur in the POLAL, POLAL, and HIPPOL stems. So basically, I don't know why. There's a whole new stem just for the biconsonantals with the PL. There's a whole new stem just for the biconsonantals with the PUL, which we'll get to next week. There's a whole new stem just for the biconsonantals with the HIPAL, which we'll get to in a couple of weeks. So I don't know. There's not much more to say about that. But here's how to recognize it. Notice it says that these stems are characterized by a whole vav after the first consonant. That's what that is. Now that's a shurik, but still normally it can be a whole vav or a shurik. Um, where's the shurik? I think the shurik shows up.
Hmm.
Hmm. Everything else is whole vav, isn't it? For your reference, the pull-up forms of the verb room to exalt or to lift up are presented below. So let's see. Well, that's what we're looking at on that chart right there. Same thing. Yeah, I'm not really sure why. I'm gonna have to research that myself. I don't know why that's a shirt. But you can see here we have the whole involve, whole involve, whole involve, whole involve, whole involve, and after the first root consonant. So, and that's the pull out. And it's basically this the translations will be the exact same as you would as if it's a PL. That make any sense? Is that okay? It's just something new. You don't see it much. I don't think it's going to be in the test, but you should be aware of it. Okay.
Okay.
I won't put it there, but you should be aware of it. That's all. Um, let's see something real quick. Trying to figure out why they have these in red. Let me clear this up here. Okay, I understand why that's in red, but why is that in red? Um, I don't know. I have to look at it. I didn't spend much time with it because I don't I'm not that strong in Hebrew that I spend that much time in the Polel, but I probably need to be. So I'll get there eventually. So again, I'm not going to put it on the test, but you should be aware that there are some minor stems. We talked about the seven major stems. That's what we're going to focus on, but we're going to introduce at least four minor stems. The Polel is associated with the PL for biconsonantal verbs. That's all that is. And its primary diagnostic feature is that whole vav in the first root position. Everything else is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it's in red because just to identify, even though it doesn't have three consonants, but just to identify the three consonants, I don't know. And then
Yeah, I'm
double
not
M.
sure either. I mean, here's a root one position, here's root two position. Okay, and so this would be root one and root two, and that's a final mem or
Yeah, it is.
yeah. So I'm not real sure. I'll have to go. I'm sure it has to do with that word itself, which I'm not
Mm.
familiar with. I'd have to go look at it, and maybe we can look at it. We got a minute. Maybe you guys can all look it up. Do your Google search or something. I don't know. Resh, noon, iron, Lamont, and pop. Resh, here we go. Resh, and Resh and Mim with a shirt. And maybe that has something to do with its lexical form. I bet it does. The lexical form would use the shuruk, lexical being the dictionary form to look it up. And we find that word on page 477, room with the lexical form to be high, exalted, arise, or rise in the call, the Hiphael, to raise, lift up, and the Hophal, be exalted, the Polel, to exalt, bring up, extol, raise, to raise children. So you don't see the PL, you see the Polel there. Um, so that is the call form in this is the call lexical form, for the biconsonantal of that particular word
Okay.
to exalt or raise up. Yeah, that's why that's there. Um, and so now the other question is, okay. I've got, well, I know why. Okay, think about it. Let's think about it. Root one position, root two position, and it's biconsonantal, right? Root three. There was at one time another mem, and the lexical form doesn't have it, but but it comes back under certain situations. That's what that is. Okay, that's all that is. Just have to think through it. All right. Everybody, Hebrew scholars now, y'all got it?
Got some,
It
got
is logical. Now, obviously, when it's in red, it makes life easier. But in theory, conceptually, you should be able to walk through the same thing we just did. Okay, that's one position, that's two, that's a vowel, can't be a consonant. Huh. Oh, well, think about it. Okay, that's lexical form. And then I go, oh, it's the call, lexical form. Okay, got that. Okay, now why do I got the second mem? Oh, because it's biconsonantal. Bi being two, right? Originally, there was another mem, and there it is. So it comes back in these forms. That's all.
It's interesting as well that PL use a dagesh forte, which double the letter. But in this case, you don't have that dagesh, but you have the double.
That could be, you may be onto
mm,
something there, David. I don't know. But that could be associated why this is a polel. Uh, 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 Maybe there's something associated with, okay, that doggish forte with the doubling is for biconsonantals because this final consonant comes back. It doesn't have the biconsonant. It doesn't have the doggish forte for the doubling. That's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that.
yeah,
So that could very well be it. I don't know. And that's why it's a
yeah,
polel, not a PL, because the PL has the doggish forte, and they don't need it for the polel. They don't need it. And I suppose if you think about it, if you didn't have the polel and you did the doggish forte there, and for biconsonantal, then what have you got? You got we'll just say a mem, a final mem, and then another final mem. So you got the doggish forte plus the biconsonantal. I don't know if that makes no sense. That's maybe it's associated with that very same thing. It could very well be. I don't know. It's logical. It may not be right, but who knows? I like it. I'm
makes
gonna steal it.
sense.
I'm gonna tell everybody that's the answer.
It
Thanks,
makes
Donnie. Appreciate it.
sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It's logical.
Mm,
That is it, guys. There is nothing left. Some of these chapters, as we move on, like I said, you're just building. You're not learning anything new. You're just applying it in a different application, and so they become pretty quick and easy. Um, and I kind of like that in the sense that it still gives us time to absorb it, and you got time to do the homework and the quiz without being as overloaded as you might have been in the first few weeks of the class. You felt kind of like, oh man, this is driving me crazy. But now you'd be like, okay, I've seen that before, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. It's still a lot to absorb, okay? And really the big issue here is not the form, not, you got to recognize the form, but the big issue is the translation, right? How do I translate it? Well, the PL is supposed to be some kind of intensive, but it's not, there's other nuances to intensive. Remember we did last week, there's the fricative, which basically is a taking a intransitive verb, one that doesn't take an object, direct object, and make it transitive. That means make it to take a direct object. He is holy. Well, uh, there's no direct object with he is holy. So you want to be sanctified would require a direct object. So that would be a fractative approach. A denominative, which is where you take a noun and the noun now becomes verbalized. It's a verbal form of the noun. It may not necessarily be intensive, but there's an intensive in the sense that you've modified the noun to a verb form. And what are the others? I can't even remember now. Of course, there's the simple one, which basically just simple action, and the iterative one. That's the other one. Yeah, the iterative one is where it's a repeated action instead of like he walked home, he walked back and forth. He paced. It's more habitual, repetitive kind of work. So with the PL, that's the kind of nuances in translation, and that's the same thing with the POL. POL. Okay. Any questions? If not, we'll go home early.
All good.
All good. All right, so I think I've Patrick and Emmanuel, I've got caught up on your quizzes and graded. Ben, I don't have your quiz for chapter 30, so you're
Yeah,
normally
I just submitted it right
okay.
now early.
All right. So I'll try to get that done soon. Uh, David, I got your test. I'll get that graded here soon, and then hopefully get caught up on the other quizzes. Don't forget, we got I think it's due next Tuesday, if I remember right, the exam number two. I really did. I think I made it pretty simple, pretty short. Okay. If you've looked at it, you should see it's not that difficult. So hopefully you feel reasonably comfortable getting that one done. So all right, so let's get that one done on time because I will take off for being late. So
Okie dokie.
all right, anything else, guys? Any problems or questions?
No, thank you.
No, appreciate you guys. Appreciate
No
y'all
question.
sticking all this out
Thank
with
you
me.
too.
Thank you,
Yeah.
brother.
Do you know
All right.
already which in which class will we take two chapters
Next week.
next week? Okay.
Next week will be two chapters. Chapter 32 and 33 are combined.
Okay.
All right.
Again, it's pretty simple, and that's going to be in the um, Pual.
Nick.
Yeah, Pual strong and
Wow.
Pual weak we'll do together.
Okay.
But it'll be like this, pretty much similar, I think. I hope
Okay.
so. We'll find out. When I look at it again, I have to look at it to remind myself I don't do it enough. I need to do it more. But yeah, I think so. All right.
All
Well,
right.
appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Y'all have a
Thank,
good day. Get some work
thank
done.
you,
You got time
brother.
to do
You have a
homework
good
now.
day
You're caught
too.
up. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.